Red-headed firecrack, the toughest can be. Them thrilling back, but still living carefree with a lazy eye that don't bother her none. She's the kind of woman that gets the job done. Oh yeah, they call her the watcher, crazy. The God-fearing cowgirl who ain't lazy. She rides like the wind, ain't nothing she can't handle, with a heart of gold and a spirit you can't wrangle. No, no, watch out for the watcher, crazy. She'll knock you out with a punch that's crazy. Don't mess with this cowgirl, you're bound to lose. She's the toughest gal around, truly singing the blues.
Good evening, everybody. It is May the 19th, 9:01 p.m., and it's still 82 degrees outside in Brazos County, Texas. Let me tell you, the blood-sucking pterodactyls have become our new state bird. They will swoop in, and they will drain you of all your life-giving blood and then spit you out and leave you for gone. I'm just telling you how it is. I want to say thank you, first of all, for everybody being here this evening. And also thank you to those of you that will catch the replay. It's much appreciated for you to come and spend some time with me. Tonight, what we're going to be covering is Texas has scheduled I believe that he's the fourth person this year to be executed. His name is Matthew Johnson. And right now, he is sitting at the Walls unit, which you can see in the little corner of my background here. Very unique prison here in Texas, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And he will die by lethal injection tomorrow, unless there is a last-minute stay of execution for some miraculous reason. I'll be very honest with you all. I don't foresee that happening. I've been reading a lot of different stuff that goes back, some time. And as we get into the case and what happened, there's not a lot of necessarily a lot of detail that's going to take up, an hour or anything like that. But there are some definite things that piqued my interest in all of this concerning, the death penalty and things like that. So, what I'm going to do is, y'all know it's so hard to keep up with all the individual hellos and all that great stuff. And if it really does bother somebody that I don't do that, please speak up and let me know, because I definitely will take the time to individually call you guys out if that's what you want me to do. But nonetheless, moving right along. So what I want to do with you guys is I spent some time today. Well, I've been doing it over the last few days, trying to put together this cool little video. And it's really short. It's like a 4-minute video. And there were just some things that I really didn't necessarily think that they were needed, I guess, in the video. So I'm going to attempt to, because there's no sound on the video, it's just slides. But I am going to attempt to kind of narrate it. And then what we'll do is we'll go out and take a look at some information about Texas death row and that kind of stuff. And then I'd like to have an actual conversation about it, at which time I will drop the link in chat. And if anybody wants to come up and share, or discuss, then I'm going to actually have some open time for that. So bear with me. It's a little bit different than what I've tried before. So I'm trying to do something new here. So please be patient with me as I learn and experiment. So, Texas is set to execute the fourth person of this year on Tuesday, Matthew Johnson, who was convicted of the 2012 murder of Nancy Harris. Nancy was 76 years old at the time of her murder. She was a widow, a mother of 4 with 12 grandchildren and 5 great grandchildren. She was working as a cashier at her local Fina Whip-In convenience store when Johnson took her life as he was robbing that store. Johnson poured lighter fluid on Nancy and lit her on fire and walked out. Nancy did make a huge impact on her community, and the loss would be felt for years to come. She will have children and a grandchild that will be in attendance tomorrow for the execution. I did go out and just took some clips that were in people's condolences for the family, just to show that people really gravitated towards her, and she was a sweet and kind, upstanding member of her community. Now, during this case, there was footage that was caught by the store surveillance camera that showed Johnson entering the store. He douses Harris with lighter fluid that was in a water bottle. He demands the money, and as she complies, he opens the register, steals some cigarettes and lighters from the overhead area. He takes a ring off of her finger, and as he turns to walk out, he flicks a lighter and lights her on fire. Well, when she realized that she was on fire, she turned around to a sink and started trying to put the fire out. And when she couldn't, she actually was starting to run outside as a paramedic and a firefighter went to help her. She was transported to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where she was taken off of life support 5 days later and succumbed to an infection that she had gotten because of the burns. Now, Johnson testified during the trial about his past, saying that he experienced sexual abuse and began smoking marijuana as a child. He said that on the day of the robbery, he didn't intend to kill her, and that it was basically he was doing that to try to get her to back away, but she wasn't coming at him. His innocence is not something that has ever been in question, because he did admit that he did this. And so his attorneys throughout the years have maintained that he's really remorseful, and they've tried to have his sentence commuted to life without the possibility of parole, because they say that in prison he doesn't have access to alcohol or drugs, which is the only time in his past that he was proven to be violent, which is not the case because you can't get that stuff in prison. So on October the 30th of 2013, the jury found him guilty of capital murder. The sentencing phase of the trial commenced and determined whether or not he would get the death penalty or life. Again, during that time, the defense raised, that he was remorseful, that he has changed his life, he's participated in religious programs, and that kind of thing. But the prosecution, they argued and maintained that his crime was very heinous in nature. His demeanor after setting her on fire was very calm. And again, that there wasn't a question about his guilt or innocence, but they felt that he would be a significant danger to society. At this point, all of his appeals have been denied, and they have, like I said, they've exhausted all of his appeals, and it's to the point where there's going to have to be something really miraculous that happens for this man to get a stay of execution. This all happened up around Dallas. And I was reading some of the news articles that are out there. Some of her children did an interview and talked about, being there, and they also presented witness statements, during the sentencing phase, and it stated how they would never be able to forgive him. And even in the article from earlier today, the daughter said, we'll never get over this. This doesn't solve anything. It doesn't resolve anything. We'll never get over it. But at least this way, we can say that there was some type of justice. Now, mind you, the murder happened in 2012. He was locked up like fairly quickly after the murder happened, um, or after she passed away, I guess. And he's been in there now for what, 12, almost 13 years, I guess, something like that. Um, and so there's not just a whole lot to do in there, but participate in programs or, religious things that will, help make the time go by. While he was in prison, he has had disciplinary actions for violence and for lewd acts towards female correctional officers, which is one of the reasons that his appeals have been denied. Now, they did say in some of these articles that he was sexually abused as a child. He had a very rough upbringing, that he was also physically and verbally abused and started using drugs at a very young age. He also was self-admitted, using alcohol to cope as well. And so the defense has stood on the premise that, okay, well, he doesn't have access to these things, and they had an expert witness during the trial that testified that he was a very low risk for violent reoffending as long as he didn't have access to crack cocaine and alcohol, drugs and alcohol. But the fact of the matter is that they are able to get their hands on drugs and alcohol in prison. And he also had a prison record. And in that prison record, he had disciplinary cases for both violence and lewd acts towards women. And so, you know, I was having a conversation with someone the other day because I am a very strong proponent of the death penalty. I believe in it. And in the state of Texas, and we'll get to that part in just a second, there are specific reasons which allow for capital punishment, and they are very specific. And I also know, and I think I've shared this a couple of times throughout the week, that there are people that have had their sentences overturned and have been released because of new evidence. So when I think about the death penalty, I think about it being reserved for the worst of the worst, beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt. Hey, Roy. Hey, MRH. Um, I truly do believe in that. And I know that when you lose someone, you do want justice. When you lose someone you love, you do, in such a heinous way. I mean, this guy walked in a little after 7 o'clock in the morning to a convenience store that this lady had worked at for like 5 or 6 years. Um, and with no regard for her life whatsoever, just walked in, and yes, everything this guy did was caught on video. Doused her with lighter fluid. Some of the sources out there say bleach, but I believe that it was lighter fluid. And for some cigarettes and a little bit of change. Like, and then calmly walks out of the store with her standing there screaming on fire. And so you look at that and you think, gosh, she was just a little 76-year-old grandma that spent every Friday with her grandchildren. That was Fridays were Nene days. And yes, it's a heinous crime. It is. And at this point, with his innocence not in question, I believe that, I mean, he went there with the intent to commit a felony, which was robbery. And in the commission of that crime, he took someone's life. And in Texas, that is grounds for capital punishment. So I truly believe that 100%, regardless of what he's done to rehabilitate himself, he deserves lethal injection. Are there other cases where there are questions about guilt or innocence? There are questions about the evidence that's presented. Yes, Roy, she was a widow of about 8 years. And when you have those cases where there's a question, and I don't know how many of you actually follow like the real criminal justice stuff that happens, like for example, yes, Ruben, he did bring the lighter fluid with him in a water bottle. He went there to rob the store. And he even says that at the end when he flicked the lighter, that he was only flicking the lighter to get her to step back. But that there's no way that could be correct. He had already doused her with the lighter fluid. He knew exactly what was going to happen when he struck that lighter. He knew she was going to go up in flames. Yes, crazy brat. He's never denied that he went there with the intent to rob that store. So and yeah, I mean, yeah, he did. Yeah, he knowingly went with that tool to be able to do that to her. And so, like I said, in this case, yeah, I understand the drug thing was an attempt by the defense to get him off. And that's their job. Their job is to try. And that's why it is so much more expensive for the taxpayers to bear the burden of keeping people like this on death row for so long, is because of those appeals. They are allowed automatic appeals. And so, but that is what our Constitution provides us. So let's take a look at this. So here is some information from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice website. There is a lot of information. Y'all can go out there and look my child up if you want to. I mean, it's all out there, right? So we're going to kind of go through a little bit of the stuff that's out there. So he was 38 years old when he was received into TDCJ. The highest level of education he had completed was the 10th grade. The offense date was May the 20th of 2012. So he will be put to death 13 years to the date of when he committed the offense. He was 36 at the time of offense. He is out of Dallas County. He is a black male that stands 5'6", 244 pounds. And he is native Texan. His prior occupation, he was a mechanic, a warehouseman, and heavy equipment operator. He'd been to prison before for robbery and evading arrest. The summary of incident that TDCJ has listed is that he walked into a gas station with a plastic bottle filled with bleach and continued behind the sales counter where the victim was working. He took cigarettes and lighters from behind the counter and cash from the cash register drawer. The subject poured the bleach on the victim and set her on fire before walking out of the station. The victim died later at the hospital as a result of her injuries. There were no co-defendants, and she was a white female. That white female's name was Nancy Johnson, and she was 76 years old. She was a widow. She was a mother. She was a grandmother and a great-grandmother. And so she had worked at this convenience store for, I think, 5 or 6 years when this took place. So I definitely am in favor of this man being put to death. I mean, it's just the consequences of his actions, and so yes, Roy, a very nice lady. She was very well loved. So apparently the gas station that she worked at was catty corner, I guess, from a school. And so kids would come in, their parents would come in. And I mean, there were a lot of people that that didn't necessarily know her in her personal life, but they knew her in her professional life because they were patrons of the store. And there was not one negative thing that I could find out there about her. Nothing. So I don't know there are groups out there right now that tonight there was one that met, that wants to pray for him to get a last minute stay of execution or anything like that, or to abolish the death penalty. And while I get some of their reasonings behind it, I don't agree. I don't agree in complete abolition of the death penalty. I do believe that as more technology has become available, that death penalty cases should continue to go through processes before the inmate is actually put to death. And we'll get into why in just a little bit. Yeah, she cooperated fully with him. And so there was, yeah, you're absolutely right. There was no need at all for him to harm her. But he was high and looking for a little change to get his next fix. And I get addiction is a disease, but there are a lot of addicts out there that don't go and set another human being on fire and kill them for drugs. As I light a Newport. One of the things that I think is really cool about the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and the state of Texas is that they have a site out there. You can go to their website and they have a bunch of different information out here about death row. And so it goes through and it will tell you right now, every person that is sitting on death row. And I mean, our list is kind of long. So this was last updated April the 29th. And as you go in here, and it goes from like the most recent that was sentenced to the oldest person on death row. But you can go in here and you can click on their number and it'll pull up all their information, and it will tell you, all the little information, about them that TDC deems releasable. You can also come in and you can break down the statistics by race, which right now, we have 7 females as of April the 29th. 7 females in our prisons here in Texas that are on death row. We have 165 males. That's a lot. That's a lot. Let's see. Of those, so one of these in here that's other, and actually I think he had his sentence commuted. One of those that is under that other is actually here from Brazos County. His dad was an attorney here, and he walked into a neighbor's garage and killed a 68-year-old man and attempted to kill the man's wife, and she survived. But it was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. It'll go through and it'll tell you in here, you can look at who's been executed already, and you can click the link and you can see their information. This was the last guy that they executed, Moses Mendoza. Wow. He was received in 2005 when he was 21. He completed the 12th grade. His crime was committed in 2004. He was 20 years old at the time of offense. And let's see. Oh, he fatally strangled a 20-year-old white female, took her body to a field behind his house, and kept her there for several days until questioned by police. He then drove the body to a dirt pit in rural Collin County and set her body on fire and buried her under a brush pile. So, and then if you go back, you can read their last statement. So he was executed April the 23rd of 2025, and his last statement was, to Mark, Pam, Austin, Uncle Troy, and Jose, I'm sorry for having robbed you of Rochelle's life. To Avery, who I know is not here, I robbed you of a mother. I'm sorry for that. I know nothing that I could ever say or do would ever make up for that. I want you to know that I'm sincere. I apologize. Thank you for being here today. To all my loved ones, I love you. I am with you and I'm well at peace. You know that I'm well and everything is love. Don't kill them with kindness. Heal them with kindness and love. Always love, love, love. Thank you, Warden. So that was his last statement. And some of these, y'all, they're very interesting to go through. He was 41 when he was executed. And so here's one. This guy right here, let's see. So back in the day, before we became a real digitized society, this is how TDC used to enter in all the records. And on some of these, like back in the day, they had a lot of information in them. So when you go back through some of these old ones, then you can see how the times have changed and how much they don't release anymore. It's kind of interesting, really. So this guy right here, Garcia Glenn White, let's see, he was 33 when he was received in TDCJ. That was in 1996. The date of his offense that got him executed was December the 2nd of 1989. And this happened in Harris County. Um, he was a fry cook, and I guess he must have had a year of college. He had no prior record. And it says he was convicted in the December 1989 stabbing death of twin sisters Burnett and Annette Edwards inside their Houston home. White had gone to the Edwards residence to see their mother, Bonita, whom he stabbed to death with a knife following an argument. When the two girls came out from their bedroom to see what happened to their mother, White stabbed each several times in the chest. Evidence also indicated that White sexually assaulted Burnett, whose body was found in a back bedroom. White gave a videotaped confession to the killing in July of 95, following his arrest in another capital murder investigation. So he killed two women and stabbed one. I guess he didn't actually kill her. Let's see. So he was executed October the 1st of 2024. And his last statement was, "Yes, ma'am. First, I would like to apologize for all the wrong I've done and for pain I've caused to the Edwards family. I regret, I apologize, and I pray that you can find peace, comfort, and closer in your heart for the wrong I've done and the pain I've caused you and anybody else I've caused pain to. I just want to apologize. I take responsibility for it. I regret. I regret. Oh wait. Thank you. Oh, I regret. I hope you find closure. I would also like to thank my family and friends and loved ones. Thank you for all the love and comfort y'all have shown. I pray for the administration, all the guards, and just pray for my brothers and sisters behind these walls that y'all continue to help each other and lift each other up in love. I pray for all the field ministers and life coaches. I just thank you for so many things, Father. I just pray that y'all have peace on this earth. Y'all keep coming together. And again, I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused to anyone. I just ask you to please find comfort and closure in your heart. I would like to sing a song. Sings I Trust in God. I apologize and I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused. To my family and friends and loved ones, keep y'all's head up and stay strong. To all my brothers and sisters incarcerated, y'all keep pushing forward. Keep loving one another. To the administration again and to the guards, thank you for treating us like human beings. Thank you, and I pray. That's it, Warden. Oops. So let's see. Kind of crazy. Was it his? Okay. So this guy here, and I'll do his little thing in a minute. His name was Billy Wayne Cobble. He was executed in February of 2019. His last statement was, "Yes, sir. That'll be $5. I love you, and I love you. Mike, I love you. Where's Nellie at? I love you. That'll be $5. Take care." Let's see. Let's see. He was 41 when he went into TDC. His date of offense was August of 89. Out of McLennan County, he was 40. He was an electrician by trade and had 2 years of college. No prior prison record. He was convicted in the 1989 slaying of his estranged wife's parents and brother, shot to death at their home in Axtell were Robert Joseph Vicha, his wife, Zelda Vicha, and their son, John Robert Vicha. Cobble later kidnapped his wife, Karen Cobble, at gunpoint after handcuffing her 4 children to a bed. His car was pursued by police in Bosque County, where it wrecked. Cobble was jailed after being released from the hospital. Karen Cobble was also hospitalized with injuries from the car wreck, but survived. So, yeah, he killed her parents and brother. And that was him. So I don't even understand what his, $5 thing. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate that. But, it's crazy. It is absolutely insane to me. Some of the things that people have done. And they think that just because they go into prison and they're sorry while they're in there, that's supposed to change the outcome. And unfortunately for me, I don't agree with that. So, you can go through and if you'll give me a second, I will get this link and drop it in the chat so that you all can go out yourselves and look. I've never looked really to see if any other states do this. Hang on. But it would be interesting to know. And I'm just going to pin that up there at the top. So y'all can go check that out if you want to. Let's see here. There was one other one. I wish it would stay highlighted or whatever when you click on them, because it's been a long time since I went through all of these. And there have been a couple of different times that I've sat here and gone through all these over the years, because it's just interesting, to see what people have done. So this person's name is Danielle Simpson. They were born in 1979. They were 21 when they were received by TDCJ death row. Completed 11th grade. The crime was committed in January of 2000. He was 20 at the time. He was a black male out of Anderson County, Texas, which is East Texas. He was a machinist and a laborer. He and 3 co-defendants went to the residence of an 84-year-old white female. They taped her mouth shut with duct tape, tied her hands and feet, put her in the trunk of her vehicle, drove to the Neches River, tied a rope with a block to her, and threw her in the river, causing her death. Simpson and his co-defendants were in possession of the victim's vehicle at the time of arrest. Co-defendants were Jennifer Simpson, which was his wife, Lionel Simpson, his brother, and Edward McCoy. 6 bucks. His last statement was, "Yeah, I want to tell my family I love y'all. Tell Kate I love her too. Tell brother, my kids, I love y'all. I'm going to miss y'all. I'm ready. I mean, it's like, holy shit. It's crazy. Crazy. Then it has a tab on here for the scheduled executions. As you can see that right now, Matthew Johnson is the only one scheduled. So will we have more this year? Probably. You can also go here and look and see how they break down. And this is back to December 7th of 1982 through April the 28th of 2025. And it'll tell you how many inmates Texas has put to death every year. So 2018 was 13. Let's see. I think 16 was in 2013, 24 in 2009, 26 in 2007, 24 in 2006, 33 in 2002, 40 in 2000, 35 in 99. In 98, there was 20. And 97, there was 37. 37. So it's really interesting to go through. Oh, and I guess these are the women. One white female inmate executed in 98. One white female inmate executed in 2000. One black female inmate executed in 2005. One black female inmate executed in 2013. One white female inmate executed in 2014. And one black female inmate executed in 2014. So they just broke the women out since there's not a lot of women versus the men. So yeah, and then they break it out by race, white, black, Hispanic, or other. So 4 others, 114 Hispanic, 212 black, 264 white. So, one thing you can say is that the whole racism thing, yes, you can see, Avery, what their last statement was. Ooh, Roy, that's a good one. That's a good question. Hey, Snooks, welcome in. Everybody that's coming in. Hang on, let's see. Let's see. I'm going back up to look to see questions. So, any difference between female and male last statements? Do females take more responsibility? For example, let's take a look because we can go back and let's see here. John Carl, bear with me. So here is Lisa Coleman. She was 30 when she got to death row. She completed the 10th grade. She was 28 on the date of her offense. Prior prison record was a 5-year sentence for possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance from Tarrant County, and a previous 2-year sentence for burglary of habitation. In 2004, authorities were called to her residence where they found a 9-year-old black male deceased. An autopsy of victim concluded the child was severely malnourished and underweight. Coleman and co-defendant were found to have restrained the child over a period of time, depriving him of food. And then Marcella Williams was co-defendant, and that's the gold stuff right there. Oh, bitch. Let's see. Where did she go? She says, last statement. I just want to tell my family I love them. My son, I love him. The girls on the row, I love them and keep their heads up. Tell Darlie I love her, hand in hand. God bless y'all. I'm all right. Tell them I finished strong. I love y'all. I'm done. I love you, Richie. I love you. Thank you, Brad, John, all y'all. God is good. I love you, Auntie. I'm done. So that was hers. Honestly, I think that women probably aren't as in this particular situation, probably not as remorseful as men. So here's another one. Uh, Kimberly McCarthy. She completed the 12th grade. She was 36 on the date of offense, which was in 1997. She was out of Hunt County. She had been an occupational therapist, a waitress, and a home health care person. She had prior conviction for one count of forgery, and she was released on parole in 1990 and discharged 1991 from parole. So on July the 21st, McCarty of 97, McCarty entered the residence of a 70-year-old white female in Lancaster with the intent to rob the victim. A struggle took place and the victim was stabbed numerous times, resulting in her death. McCarthy then used the victim's credit cards and used the victim's vehicle for transportation. She acted alone. There was no co-defendant in that case. Oh, shit. La la la. Now I gotta find her again. Sorry about that. Get the pushing buttons over here. Oh. Let's see. That was Lisa. Remind me about Suzanne, because Suzanne's down here too. Here, we're gonna open her up like that. How about we do that? Suzanne, and then we were looking at Kimberly. Here we go. Her last statement says, I just want to say thanks to all who have supported me over the years. Reverend Campbell for my spiritual guidance, Aaron, the father of Darian, my son, and Mari, my attorney. Thank you, everybody. This is not a loss. This is a win. You know where I'm going. I'm going home to be with Jesus. Keep the faith. I love y'all. Thank you, Chaplain. So, I mean, not near what you would think, would be definitely not softer. That's for sure. This was Susan Basso. She completed high school. She was 44 at the time of her offense. She's originally from Albany, New York. She was an office clerk, seamstress, laborer. So in 1998, Basso and co-defendants kidnapped a 59-year-old retarded white male and intentionally caused his death by beating him with belts, baseball bats, steel-toe boots, hands, and feet. Basso was the leader of the group and encouraged all the co-defendants to abuse the victim. The murder was committed for proceeds from an insurance policy on the victim, in which Basso was the named beneficiary, as well as other assets in which Basso was named heir. Basso had wooed the victim into leaving his family and friends in New Jersey and moving to Texas under the guise that she would marry him. The victim was found in a ditch with injuries so horrendous the body was unrecognizable. Her co-defendants were James O'Malley, Greg Ahrens, Bernice Ahrens, Hope Ahrens, and Terrence Singleton. Let's see. Her last statement, she declined to make one. She was executed in February of 2014. So that was her. Okay, let's see what other questions. Oh, come back here. Let's see what other questions we got. Doo-doo. Catfish, y'all have 2,021 men and 46 women on death row. Wow. Hey, Mountain Girl. Okay. Yeah, there was a Reuben something in there. I seen that too.
Hey.
Nope, there are no fumblers on that list as of yet. Let's see. Let's see here. Roy's got a question. Just throwing out a question. If a gang member is convicted of killing another gang members or other gang members in non-public areas, should they be executed? I mean, if I'm going to just jump off the cuff and, give my opinion, no, I don't think they should. That's just me, but I think that in a situation like that, number one, it's cheaper to house them. It's not as heavy as a burden. You can sentence them to life in prison without parole and, make them work. I think that in a situation like that, it's more of a burden on working class Americans to put the bill to put them to death. So someone asked, how many states have the death penalty? 27. And 2 of those right now, which is Oregon and Wyoming, do not currently have any inmates sentenced to death. So, uh-oh. Look, Ambi is a natural. She's just a natural. So you're just going to deal with that fumbler. Hey, shit show. It's good to see you, my love. Hope you're doing well. Yeah. So when I say that my thoughts, my perspective on the death penalty is a little different, like the guy that's being executed tomorrow, like he absolutely 110% deserves it. The lady that starved the child, absolutely 110% deserves it. I think when you start getting into cases where you've got multiple co-defendants, and there could be questions about, because let's keep it real here. In a situation like that, 9 times out of 10, when you've got multiple co-defendants, whoever talks first is going to get the best deal. Period. So it incentivizes someone to say, hey, yeah, I'm guilty of this, but this was my part. And that is not necessarily always the case, nor can it be 100% determined by evidence. Like if there's evidence that's questionable, then that I have a problem with. And like we have cases where, someone has declared their innocence, yet through the whole entire thing. I mean, we had one inmate that I want to say he did like 30 years. He was released after 20 or 30 years, and he was innocent. DNA is what ended up being, the key. And it wasn't until we had the technology to be able to actually test the DNA that it was found that he was actually an innocent man. And I feel like that if there is a possibility that that could happen, then they should not be put to death. And that's just me. So, and it may not be popular, and I get that and I understand, but um I'll tell you, I worked there. I worked in TDC. I was a correctional officer. I did not get to work death row. I wanted to. That was one of my hopes and dreams is I wanted to work on death row. And then I wanted to, after I did that, I wanted to become a warden and end up writing a book. And I didn't do that. I went a totally different direction in life, which is good. Yeah, Roy, and I'm sure that it's one hell of a place to sit. And I mean, like there's a guy from here that I think Marcus is a little younger than I am. I actually knew him. Um, Not like super personal level. We weren't friends. I'd met him out at the bar a couple of times. And him and this younger girl, she was actually a juvenile at the time. And this guy, they lured another guy out with them one night and were going to rob him for some weed. Well, they ended up killing him. And this guy, Marcus, they all four of them, the dead guy, and then the three that were involved, the two guys and the girl, they drove this guy out to Marcus's family, had a ranch in one of the neighboring counties, and they drove that guy out there and set his body on fire and left him. And he was found like a week later. Well, uh, it just so happens that um, I knew the girl too because she had gone through the juvenile detention facility when I worked there. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate that. Yeah, Avery, they robbed him for weed for I want to say that it was like, I don't know, I want to say it was 3 pounds of weed. It could have been anywhere from a pound to 5 pounds. I don't remember exactly. It was just weed. And ended up shooting him and killing him and then set his body on fire. So what happened was, you've got three defendants and they're all pointing the finger at each other. You know, Barefoot, I agree. Back in that time, yeah, for sure. Ultimately, um, it was, I guess it was, well, two of them talked and Marcus didn't talk. And so Of course, he was convicted. I think that all three of them, because in the state of Texas, if you're there, you're getting charged. You know, if you didn't call for help, you're getting charged. Period. And in those kinds of situations, are you calling me a cockeyed cock? Caw, caw. Yeah, eyewitness testimony is absolutely unreliable. You are 110% correct, Roy. And we had to do when I was getting my degree. So one of my professors was a criminal profiler. He worked at the FBI or worked for the FBI. He's written some books. Very, very well known for his accomplishments in the world of law enforcement and criminal justice and stuff like that. And he actually had us do an experiment. And we watched a video where a guy comes in, he commits a crime and he leaves. And so, right after the video ends, like he talks for 5 minutes and then he goes to asking us questions about what we saw in the video. Now, mind you, we're sitting in class. There's probably 50 of us. We all watched the same video. And he starts asking questions about details from that video. And there were very few questions that anybody answered correctly the first time. And we were eyewitnesses to what happened. But for whatever reason, and then you put yourself in the place of that crime happening, you being active while that crime is happening in that environment. And I can tell you, just from being involved in a shooting, that there are certain things that you can easily, hey, crazy brat, that you can easily recall. Like the night of the shooting, there are still certain things about that. It's like they are burned in my mind. There are other details I couldn't tell you. So, and that's why I guess I'm such a stickler, about the evidence thing. And, especially when there's multiple, co-defendants or even another co-defendant, that evidence needs to be on point. So, let's see. Here we go. Oh, this was a very interesting one. Inmates no longer on death row. Now, when you go out and you look at this one, this is what blew my mind. Okay. Because they don't really give a whole lot of detailed information. But you can scroll through here and it'll tell you, their name, their TDC number. And of course, the smaller the number, the older the case, right? So, like this guy in 1974 was death by suicide. This guy's his sentence was reduced to life. Conviction reduced to murder with malice, aforethought, sentenced to 99 years. Sentence reduced to life. Conviction reduced to murder with malice, sentenced and resentenced to 55 or 50 years. Conviction reduced to murder, sentence reduced to life, sentence reduced to life. Um, Conviction reduced to murder. Let's see, sentence reduced to life, reduced to life. Look at these. Conviction reversed, departed on federal bench warrant, which means that his conviction for the death penalty was reversed, but then he was called up on a federal bench warrant. So the feds may have done something different there, but in the state of Texas, his conviction was reversed. Conviction reduced, conviction reduced, reduced. Sentence commuted to life by governor. Sentence reduced, died of natural causes. Conviction reduced to murder with a deadly weapon, sentenced to 55 years. So again, natural causes. Sentence reformed from death to life. Conviction reduced to murder, died of natural conviction. Look at this one. In 1979, conviction reversed. 77, conviction reversed. Died while serving a 10-year sentence for attempted murder. Conviction reduced, reduced. Conviction overturned. And Washington reverted back to his sentence for attempted murder of a peace officer. Sentence reduced, conviction reduced. And I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. You know, conviction overturned, pled guilty to murder at retrial, resentenced to 45 years. Sentence overturned, pled no contest, and sentenced to time served, released. Was this guy. That was in 97. So when you go through here and you look at some of these things, you know, I mean, and the list is long, y'all. It's not short. It's not a short list at all. I mean, it's nuts. That's a lot of damn people. Look, this one was remanded back to court, the trial court, for a new trial. Let's see. Oh, that dude died. There were a bunch that were, you know, natural causes. But yeah, I mean, look, here's another one. Alfred Brown in 2015, conviction overturned and released. So when I see that kind of stuff, you know, that lets me know, hey, we get it wrong. We get it wrong. And Joy, we can't just ship all Mexicans back to Tijuana because not all of them were born there. I mean, if they were born here as natural citizens, you know, then we can't do that. And I don't hey Amby, it's good to see you. Yeah, Google says 27 states. I freaking love Joy Perry. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can tell I'm way behind in this chat. Yo, let me catch up because I've just been doing a blah, 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 blah. I know. She's so gangster. Um, and really, I agree, Roy. I don't necessarily see it um as a political issue when it comes to the death penalty. But apparently somebody said, and that's right. Uh, make Trump great again. I don't know. That's crazy. Mm-mm-mm. Which is worse, life in prison without parole or the death penalty? Well, I'm going to tell you like this. If it were me, give me the death penalty. Because if I don't want to sit locked up for on average 12 to 13 years, you know, I couldn't do it. I'd want the easy way out. And in my mind, death is the easy way out. Wow. In Utah, pursuing the death penalty case costs approximately 1.6 million more per inmate compared to a case where the sentence is life without parole. And it's probably relatively, you know, close to that in most states that have the death penalty. So, mm-mm-mm. Fast City, it was I tell you what, I never ever yes, Ruben, there are some that do, like the ones that went from the death penalty to murder with 50 years, 45 years, things like that. They're eligible for parole after they've uh I want to say that it's half their sentence. It might, well, it's going to depend on what year they were convicted in and where that falls under the state guidelines, like sentencing guidelines and stuff, and how much time they have to serve before they're eligible for parole. Because whenever they say life in prison, that is standard, like 35 years in the state of Texas, I believe. It's between 35 and 40 years, I think. So, mhm. Hey, Tainted. Um, no, I'd have to download it all into a spreadsheet, Ruben, and then make some formulas to pull that information out. Um, but let's see. Y'all want to see something else? And this kind of goes to what Joy was saying a while ago. Death row information, citizenship of inmates on death row. Any death row inmate not listed here is an American citizen. And we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 inmates on death row that are not American citizens. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them are Mexican nationals. So, some pretty interesting stuff there. And then let's see. Let's see here. Some death row facts. Death row was in the east building of the Huntsville unit from 1928 to 1952. From 1952 until 1965, the electric chair was in the building by the east wall of the Huntsville unit. Now, the Huntsville unit is the one that's shown in the backdrop, and I'll get back to it in just a minute. It's got the big red brick wall around it. Avery, I would venture to guess a lot of people get off on technicalities. That brings me back to one of the things that I was saying earlier was I don't know how many people really follow the criminal justice news for their state or whatever, but it's been some years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe a little bit longer. There was a huge issue with the crime lab in Harris County. Now, with the state the size of Texas, what ends up happening is not every county has a crime lab. So we have designated crime labs in our larger cities, and um, certain areas or counties send their stuff to particular crime labs, the larger ones, because they just don't have the facilities or the funds to be able to do it in house. And so there were there was some stuff that was going on, and there was some cross contamination which led to an investigation where they found out that there were a lot of things that were not that's the Huntsville unit, um Roy. It's the one I'll show you in just a minute on my thumbnail. It's known as the Walls, WALLS. Um, but with the Houston Crime Lab, when they or Harris County, when they went in and they did their investigation, like they found hundreds of cases that they had screwed up on. And there was one person in particular that every case that person had processed evidence on had to be re-examined. Every case. So we're human beings. We're subject to make errors. We're subject to intentionally making bad decisions, and so um that's why I say that you really, really, really have to make sure that the evidence that is convicting and putting that person to death is completely on point. So, sorry, got off on a little bunny trail there. Okay. The men on death row were moved from the Huntsville unit to the Ellis unit in 1965. Death row remained at the Ellis unit until 1999. In 1999, TDCJ moved death row to the Polanski unit. The Polanski unit houses death row inmates separately in single person cells, with each cell having a window. Death row inmates are also recreated individually. Inmates on death row receive a regular diet and have access to reading, writing, and legal materials. Depending upon their custody level, some death row inmates may have a radio. The women on death row are housed at the O'Daniel unit. Inmates on death row do not have regular TDCJ ID numbers. They have special death row numbers. Hanging was the means of execution from 1819 to 1923. The state of Texas authorized the use of the electric chair in 1923 and ordered all executions be carried out by the state in Huntsville. Prior to 1923, Texas counties were responsible for their own executions. The state of Texas executed the first inmate by electrocution on February the 8th of 1924. Charles Reynolds, Red River County, out of Red River County, was executed. On that same date, 4 additional inmates, Yule Morris, George Washington, Mac Matthews, and Melvin Johnson, were executed. The state of Texas has executed brothers on 6 occasions. Frank and Lorenzo Noel were electrocuted July the 3rd of 1925. S.A. and Forrest Robbins electrocuted April 6, 1926. Oscar and Mac Brown, electrocuted July 1st, 1936. Roscoe and Henderson Brown, electrocuted May 6th of 1938. Curtis, July the 1st of 1993, and Danny, July 30th, 1993, out of Harris, both by lethal injection. Jesse, September the 16th of 94, and Jose, November 18th of 99, Gutierrez, both by lethal injection. One of the most notorious inmates to be executed was Raymond Hamilton, a member of the Bonnie and Clyde gang. He was sentenced by Walker County and executed on May the 10th of 1935 for murder. Hamilton and another man had escaped from death row, only to be captured and returned to death row. The state of Texas executed the last inmate, Joseph Johnson, out of Harris County by electrocution on July the 30th of 1964. A total of 361 inmates were electrocuted in the state of Texas. When capital punishment was declared cruel and unusual punishment by the U.S. Supreme Court on June the 29th of 1972, there were 45 men on death row in Texas and 7 in county jails with death sentences. All these sentences were commuted to life sentences by the governor of Texas, and death row was clear by March of 1973. In 1973, revision to the Texas Penal Code once again allowed assessment of the death penalty and allowed for executions to resume effective January the 1st of 1974. Under the new statute, the first man, number 507, John DeVries, was placed on death row on February the 15th of 1974. DeVries committed suicide July the 1st of 1974 by hanging himself with bedsheets. The state of Texas adopted lethal injection as the means of execution in 1977 and executed the first inmate by lethal injection on December 7th of 1982. Charlie Brooks, out of Tarrant County, was executed for the kidnap and murder of a Fort Worth auto mechanic. Effective January the 12th of 1996, close relatives and friends of the deceased victim were allowed to witness executions. I'll repeat that again. Effective January the 12th of 1996, close relatives and friends of the deceased victim were allowed to witness executions. So information from this point to the bottom of the page relates to death row after 1973. For information relating to death row from 1923 to 73, you can click there and go look. So right now in Texas, and this is what I was talking about earlier about the capital offenses in the state of Texas. So these are, I think there's 10, 3, 6, 9, 10. Yep, still 10. There's 10 instances where someone could be charged and with capital murder. So you've got murder of a peace officer or fireman who is acting in the lawful discharge of an official duty and who the person knows is a peace officer or fireman. Murder during the commission or attempted commission of kidnapping, burglary, robbery, aggravated sexual assault, arson, obstruction, or retaliation, or terroristic threat. Murder for remuneration or promise of remuneration, or employing another to commit murder for remuneration or promise of remuneration. And that's for hire, basically. So the promise of being compensated, employing another to commit murder for compensation or promise of compensation. Murder during the escape or attempted escape from a penal institution. Murder while incarcerated in a penal institution of a correctional employee with the intent to establish, maintain, or participate in a combination or in the profits of a combination. So basically, if you murder a correctional officer or a correctional employee, and it's usually in combination of escape or to take over the prison, riot, that kind of thing. Murder while incarcerated in a penal institution for a conviction of murder or capital murder. Murder while incarcerated in a penal institution serving a life sentence or a 99-year sentence for a conviction of aggravated kidnapping, aggravated sexual assault, or aggravated robbery. The murder of more than one person during the same criminal transaction or during different criminal transactions, but the murders are committed pursuant to the same scheme or course of conduct. Murder of an individual under 10 years of age or older than 10 years of age but younger than 15 years of age, or murder in retaliation for or on account of the service or status of the other person as a judge or justice of the Supreme Court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, the Court of Appeals, a district court, a criminal district court, a constitutional county court, a statutory county court, a justice court, or a municipal court. So, and it looks like right now California, Oregon, and Pennsylvania have gubernatorial moratoriums on executions right now. Texas leads the nation in the number of executions since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. California, Florida, Texas, and Alabama have the largest death row populations. As of October the 1st of 2020, 2,557 inmates were under sentence of death in the United States. There are 5 methods of execution in the United States: lethal injection, electrocution, lethal gas, hanging, and firing squad. Let's see. And then there are jurisdictions without death penalty statutes. And that's Alaska, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Dakota, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. So, lethal injection consists of a single drug protocol of phenobarbital. The average time on death row prior to execution is 11.22 years. The 2 with the shortest time on death row, both less than a year. One was executed in 96 and one in 98. And then the longest time was, 31 years for both. Just a matter of a couple of hundred days. And one was executed in 2010, one in 15. The average age of executed inmates is 39 years old. The youngest at the time of execution was 24. And the oldest, we have 78, 70, and 67. So, lots of information out there that, you can go out and read and find about death row, especially in the state of Texas. And like I said, I've never been out and really researched what other states are like, but this is fascinating to me because it's my state. Roy, I'm going to assume that murder for hire is worse than any other murder because um, basically what you're doing is you're conspiring with another person to take someone's life, um, which conspiracy is another, another one of those um, felonies that qualifies because, like, basically, in a nutshell, for typically for a crime to be a capital offense, it's got to be, death with within the commission of another felony. So I suspect that's why they worded it like that. So um we will not be attending any pool parties with Mark the Pussycat and Vaseline. Y'all have 3 women on death row in Florida? Yeah. Um oh wow. Andriza Merkovich was the sole Nevada inmate executed by firing squad in 1913. So I mean, morally for me, as far as the whole um murder for hire type situation, like if you're the person that's going to pay someone, how do number one, like morally, how do you put a dollar amount on someone's life? And if if you can pay someone to do something that heinous, what's going to stop you from doing it again? Or maybe turning into the person that does it yourself. So, I mean, I can see why it's written that way for sure. But that's just me. Um, so I said that I would be dropping the link if anybody wants to come up and discuss, or if you have a perspective that you want to share, or anything like that. I do have a overlay that I can put up. So if you come up in the back, I'll authenticate you. If you do not want to be seen, then I'll put the overlay up and leave it. But unless you got a voice changer, you're going to be heard. So I'll tell you, it's very, very, very interesting to me. Um, when I saw that the state of Texas, number one, has put more white men to death than any other race, I was shocked. I'm not gonna lie, I was shocked by that. Um, when I saw how few other races than white, black, or Hispanic there were, I have to say that I was kind of surprised by that too. Not not because I think that they commit, a whole bunch of crimes or anything like that, but I would just think that there wouldn't be that few. I don't know. It's pretty wild. But I have been looking and looking and looking to see if they have released a time yet for tomorrow, and I have not been able to find a time. Like I said, they normally will do it um, around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Oh yeah, Roy, we do. I mean, we do have a well-established Black presence in Texas. I honestly, quite frankly, I would figure that there would be a lot more Hispanics than Blacks, though, because we have a huge Hispanic population in Texas. Huge. And I really thought that, that it would be, I don't know, because you think about it, and it seems like that there are more Blacks that are incarcerated, but I don't think that's the case. I don't know. Let's look. You picture Texas full of white? No, man, let me tell you. We have we actually have an awesome population of Black cowboys. As a matter of fact, one of the oldest bull riders in the United States is a Black man that's from here, Bryan, Texas. His name was Robert Mims, is Robert Mims. I think he just recently retired, like within the last few years, from actual bull riding. I know, I think it was 2016, 17. No, it would have been 2017 or 2018. I saw him get on a bull out at a practice bucking. So no, we definitely have a really we have a strong Black population as well as Black cowboys. Pretty cool. And then also too, another really interesting thing about Huntsville. So Huntsville has um, the Wind Farm, WYNN, which is another prison. It's got I believe it's the Bird Unit, which is intake and diagnostics. It's got the Holiday Unit, which is a transfer facility. It's got the Walls Unit, which is where the death chamber is. I think that there's one more unit on the outside of Huntsville, right outside of Huntsville, but I can't think of what it is at the moment. So used to back in the day, they would host the Texas Prison Rodeo in Huntsville at the fairgrounds, and they would bus the inmates out there that were going to participate, and then the people in the stands were citizens. And so the citizens would come out and watch the inmates participate in the rodeo, whether it was bull riding, saddle bronc riding, bareback bronc riding. And this went on for years and years. And then of course they quit having it. So there's a lot of history in Huntsville. And that's where I went to college. I went to Sam Houston State University. Eat 'em up, cats. Arr. They have a prison cemetery, where people who pass away in TDCJ or they're put to death and, they don't have family or anything like that, they have a cemetery where they bury them there. But I'm going to tell you something. The pay is not that great. It is not that great to have to put up with what you have to put up with. I remember that my starting salary when I went to work for TDC was $1,533 a month. And I thought I was rich. I thought I was super rich. I look back on that now and I'm like, ooh, Lord, that wasn't nothing. They had good benefits, really good benefits, and there were perks to the job. Um, Texas. I'm looking to see what the. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's crazy. They're crazy. Hang on, let me pull this up for you so y'all can see this and know I ain't lying. Shh. They got life and bullshit fucked up. No, thank you. So, um, all right. So when this is as effective September the 1st of 2024 for your first 2 months of service, 47,000 annually, which is like $22.92 an hour. That's a non-maximum security unit. So you're talking about your low security, medium. But if you're working in a maximum security prison, then it's not you only get paid about 50 cents, 60 cents more an hour. You ain't making much more. Okay. Not a huge difference. Then that's for your first 2 months. 3 to 6 months, you bump up to $23.50 an hour, which is, and then maximum security is $24.21 an hour. I mean, look, over here, after 73 months of service, what's that? So after 6 years of service, you're only making $27.57. That's nuts right there. That is absolutely insane. So, correctional staff working on the maximum security facilities will receive an additional 3% as maximum security differential. That's the All Red unit, the Beto, Clemens, Cofield, Connolly, Darrington, Ellis, Estelle, Ferguson, Hughes, McConnell, Michael, Montford. What the fuck is that? I've never heard of that one. Polanski, Robertson, Scott, Skyview, Smith, Stiles, Telford, Wainwright, and Wynn. So, and then if you're a veteran that's completed at least 2 years of active military service, has been discharged under honorable conditions, or an applicant who's earned an associate's or bachelor's degree from an accredited college will start as a correctional officer, whatever one that is, with 13 to 24 months service. So you start out at $24.67 an hour for non-maximum units and $25.41 an hour for maximum. Looking out my back door. Yeah. Let's see what the CO supervisors. So let's see. If you're a sergeant, you're making about $5,000 a month. Laundry manager 3, a little over 5, right at 5. Lieutenant 52 to 5,300. Captain 54 to 5,600, and major is 5,854 to 6,030. And I mean, you're talking about putting in time. That's time put in right there. So, I mean, it's not as lucrative as people think, which is part of the reason why you have so many correctional officers that end up doing illegal shit, bringing in contraband, things like that. So, I will say that Texas, and I don't know about any of the other states out there, but it seems like seems like that they will accept just about anybody, as long as you got a clean background history, as long as you got a clean background. They don't do they've really had to lower their standards because we stay way understaffed for the number of inmates that we have. Oh, Roy, I will tell you that I don't disagree with that statement. I do not disagree with that statement. A lot of the people that are correctional officers, the one thing I found is that you're going to have good and bad anywhere you go. Period. You're just going to have that. There were a lot of people that were there to collect a check because it's not a strenuous job. It's not hard, it's not manual labor intensive. There were a lot of people that, got there and they had the unit that I was at, I'll be straight up. The reason that I left is because they wanted to make examples out of officers for petty, stupid shit. But then when they caught officers bringing in contraband, because it was their friends, they swept that shit under the rug. Or, when it was one of the rank that went off on an inmate and beat the shit out of them without cause, that it would get swept under the rug. Or when they let an inmate die because they didn't want to get their fat asses up to turn some keys to let that man go to the infirmary. Those are the reasons. Those are the kind of things that happen. It wasn't the inmates that made me quit. I only had 3 inmates while I was there that I really had problems out of. Now I had a bunch that they didn't particularly care for me, but that's because I'd put the pin in their life. And they tell you when you go through training, you go in and you be firm, fair, and consistent. Because you can't go in there and be their friend. You can have a level of respect because that's their home. They live there. You do your 8 and skate. So I always went in with a sense of fear. Every time I heard that Sally Port door lock behind me and I stepped into that hallway, there was fear. I feared not getting to go home. Because at any time, if something popped off in that prison and I was taken as a hostage, there would be no negotiations for my life. None. And that's anybody. In the state of Texas, they do not negotiate when it comes to hostages. You know what you sign on for when you take the job. I agree, Roy. As soon as I hit that main hallway, it's a combination between shit, Jack Mac, sweat, feet, stinking ass men. And I'll tell you, the women's prison, it's not much better. It's not much better. It's just not as it's not as pungent as the men. The men were just like um but it's still, I mean, there is a smell. That's right, Fast Eddie. So and like I said, the unit that I was on, it was a minimum security. No, it was medium. It was medium. Um but we did have a trustee camp that was outside of the razor wire. And it was not a rock and roll unit. Oh yeah, Roy, definitely. And I will tell you, like, having worked in a men's prison and also having been in a women's prison, I was doing prison ministry. Um, I wasn't locked up in a women's prison and I wasn't a correctional officer. But just in the time that I spent in the females facility, women are way worse than men. I would never, ever want to go to work in a women's facility. Ever. Ever. So, um, because let me tell you, you have a facility with 1,500 women all on the damn period at the same time. Because that's typically what ends up happening is, yes, jack mackerel. It's sardine basically in a can, fish in a can. So just imagine open a pack of sardines and then mix some sweaty balls with ass and shit in with that. And that's what a men's prison smells like. It's pretty terrible. And like I said, the women's prison, that smell didn't hit me like that when I first would walk in, where the inmates are housed. But in the men's, it did every time. And I don't know if it's just because of how the units were set up and the pods and stuff or the dorms. Um, but women are women are nasty. You put them in confinement like that, uh, no, thank you. And I'm just of the school of thought, and I could be very wrong about this because I'm making an assumption, but um, women are more accepting. And I think it's more accepted in women's facilities of same sex relationships. In men's facilities, it's not as widely accepted or out, but there is a very distinct difference in the smell that is produced when two men have sex and two women. So, um, there's that. It's yeah, and I mean I had experiences with that, you know, walking up on two dudes going at it, and yeah, it's like holy shit, because I smelled it before I ever saw it, which was crazy. Like I was, what the fuck? And then I lost my shit. I mean, I lost my shit completely. I lost it because I would. That's not what I was expecting when I looked around the back of that last rack and saw that shit. I was like, oh fuck. So it's a very different world in there, and while I would not want to go to prison, I have no doubt that I would survive. Um, but Roy, not in the women's prison. It's not. Because them broads up there be having lots of sex. And I know the unit that I was on, we had a couple of guys that were very outgoing and flamboyant, and they did a lot of people in that unit. So Buster says women should not be allowed in men's prisons and vice versa, where they are in close contact. I Buster actually agree with that statement. However, the flip side to that, even though I agree with it, there's definitely something to be said about the balance. When you have both male and female, I at least know this to be true in the male facilities. When males have both male and female, there's not near as much violence. And it's not always because they're busy screwing all the women guards. While, yes, that does happen far too often, a lot of the times it's because, there are some men that'll look at a woman, and we called it kill. They'll kill on her, meaning they'll jack off on her and handle their business and get that sexual frustration out. And be good. And so I personally think that along with women being more, we are for the most part more nurturing. There's I guess I don't it's weird using some of these terms because it's not necessarily the way it is, but it's the best word I can use to describe. Women are more nurturing. We have a softer side, and so there's a softness there. And sometimes that helps to calm things, or to keep things in balance. When you get too much testosterone in one place, that's when shit really gets crazy. Because I can tell you, before females were allowed to be correctional officers in the state of Texas, there was a lot more violence than there is now. And I think that's it. The other thing too is, if you have a loved one in prison that you care about, one of the best things that you can do is maintain communication with them in some shape, form, or fashion. And if you're able to go and visit, that's even better. They have a better chance of not becoming quite as institutionalized, and they have a better chance to come home and actually change their life just simply because of communication. Period. Like, the system is not set up for people to be successful in changing their lives. The system is designed for recidivism. It is designed for you to fail. And so anything that you can do, to help your friend or loved one have a better chance of coming home and being a law-abiding, upstanding citizen, you take it. Take that opportunity. Absolutely, Trizzle. I absolutely believe that. So, I mean, if you just, human beings by nature, Roddy Parade, no. Most of the stuff here in Texas has no air conditioning. They have started putting in cool rooms. For example, like the unit that my son's at now, um, when he first got there, he was housed in a section where they did have air conditioning, but then he got moved to another area that does not, but they have a cooling room that does have AC. And they are allotted, they can go in there to cool down. So they're only allotted to be in there like 15 or 20 minutes at a time. So that's right, Roy. I absolutely agree with that. It's a whole different life, you know, and there's so much time on their hands that they learn. They learn how to be better criminals, and I've said it before, our criminal justice system is more geared towards retribution than it is rehabilitation. And while, yes, there are some things you will never rehabilitate someone from, there are others that you can. For example, I mean, if you go out and look at the statistics of how many people are incarcerated that were under the influence of alcohol or drugs at the time of the offense, how many people incarcerated in the U.S. were under the influence. It is estimated that a significant portion of the incarcerated population in the U.S. was under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of their offense. Approximately 65% of the prison population is estimated to have had a substance use disorder, while another 20% were under the influence but did not meet the criteria for a substance use disorder. Let's see. Oh, a large percentage of the incarcerated population, particularly in federal prisons, are convicted of drug-related offenses. While a portion of those with substance use disorders participate in treatment programs while incarcerated, and it says while a portion. It doesn't say what kind of portion, so it's small. A significant number struggle to access these programs in both the community and within prisons. So, um, I mean, it's one of those things that if you just continually put a band-aid on something and you don't get to the root cause of it, it's going to keep happening. I agree, Roy. I agree. We are we're very quick, especially in the state of Texas. Yeah, drug offenses make up most of the prisoners. Absolutely insane. I mean, there's a huge as Americans, there's a huge addiction problem. And I'm talking drugs and alcohol right now. And I'm not, there's all kinds of addictions, but speaking of drugs and alcohol, there's a huge problem, and it's so expensive and difficult for people to access treatment. That's why most people never get it. And then for the ones that do, there can still be stigmas, associated with past use. But then you have to ask yourself, You want to deal with stigma or you want to deal with no freedom? So it's one of those things where it again, if you don't deal with the root cause, it's going to continue to happen. So um it's insane. And I think Texas has one of the most uh the highest number of laws on the books. It's crazy some of the shit that's against the law. But I digress. Well, party people, we've been here a little over 2 hours. And I hope y'all have enjoyed something different. Because I've enjoyed doing something different. So there's this old saying, quit while you're ahead. I think it's time for me to quit while I'm ahead. So I'm just going to tell you all again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to have to go ahead and get this closed out tonight. Again, I will be watching tomorrow to see if I can nail down a time. If not, y'all be watching my community page after lunch. And I will update there. I'm gonna also try tomorrow. Let's see here. Let me see if this thing tells me. Ooh, Lord have mercy. Expect hot weather ahead. Yeah, it's definitely summertime. Shit. Oh hell. Yeah, we're gonna try to get to do the I'm gonna try to get out there to do the cars tomorrow also. Because on Wednesday, I'm gonna be wanting to. Oh shit, that's the rest of the week. Holy smokes! So it's supposed to be 88 tomorrow, and then 93, 94, 94. Woo wee dog! It's fixing to be hot, hot, hot. So, anyways, again, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Um, watch the community page tomorrow after lunchtime. I am Central Standard Time, just FYI. And while y'all are out there being blessed tomorrow, be a blessing to someone else. And y'all come back now. You hear?